Hi, and welcome to another video from Machar, the Washington Congregation for Secular Humanistic Judaism. I'm Machar's rabbi, Jeremy Kreidel. So, you've survived Thanksgiving, and you survived Black Friday, and you survived Cyber Monday, and you survived Giving Tuesday. And now it's almost time for Hanukkah. So what's Hanukkah? What do you do with the menorah? Is it possible to do it wrong? So let's talk about that. First, what is Hanukkah? The rabbis actually asked this, and the rabbis' answer was that the Greeks were oppressing the Jews, and the Jews were triumphant in a military victory, re-entered the temple, found that the temple had been desecrated, rededicated the temple, and Hanukkah means dedication or rededication, and discovered that they only had enough oil for the menorah to last for one day. And the menorah is supposed to be lit all the time. So they had to make more oil that was pure enough for use in the temple, and somehow, miraculously, the one day of oil lasted for 8 days. The rabbis also admit that that story is more or less made up. But it helps kids remember that Hanukkah is 8 days long. So we have the story of the oil, but the story of the oil isn't really true. There's another story about Hanukkah, and it's the story that's kind of recorded in history books and is kind of recorded in rabbinic texts, and that is that the Greeks were oppressing the Jews, and the Jews waged war to defeat the Greeks and gain their freedom. And this is true, but it's also kind of not. Because it wasn't just that the Maccabees were fighting the Greeks. They were also fighting Jews. So not every Jew agreed with the Maccabees. There were a number of Jews who actually welcomed Greek culture and wanted to see maybe some kind of fusion of it, or really weren't terribly concerned about a fusion of it, but were on the Greek side. The Maccabees didn't like any of these Jews, and these are Jews who in some ways appear a lot more like Jews in America than you might think. And so the Maccabees maybe wouldn't have liked American Jews very much either. We try to combine American and Jewish culture, and the Maccabees did not like seeing Jews combine Greek and Jewish culture. And, as it turns out, the Maccabees won the war, took over the temple, and ended up reorganizing Jewish life in the historical land of Israel in such a way that they essentially created kind of a Greek-Jewish fusion and became your average Greek leaders, which is a little bit ironic for an organization, for a group that started out as trying to defeat all these Greeks. So the stories we have, the traditional stories we tell, aren't necessarily fully true, but they are myths in the sense that they point to the origins of things. And so they're true in the sense that there's always been kind of an impulse within Jewish history and within Jewish culture towards some kind of idea of freedom or liberation. And the Maccabees kind of have that story as part of, as a thread in their story. Hanukkah happens right around the winter solstice. So Hanukkah is one of the many winter holidays that focus on bringing light into the darkness. So Roman holidays that gave rise to Christmas as we know it today were solstice holidays. They were focused on the winter solstice. Hanukkah kind of is too. And so on Hanukkah, we light a menorah and light increasing numbers of candles over the course of the holiday, bringing more light as we get, usually, closer to the winter solstice. So, there's a focus on freedom, there's a focus on light and a connection to nature, and that all kind of works for us. Even if the stories about Hanukkah aren't always the best stories and the ones that we might want to retell uncritically. So then how do you light the menorah? Most menorahs have 8 slots for candles and a separate 9th slot that is intended for a helper candle called a shamash. So the first night of Hanukkah, you put a candle in for the shamash, and you put a candle in the rightmost of the candle holders in the menorah. You light the shamash, and you use the shamash to light the first candle. The second night of Hanukkah, you put a candle in for the shamash, and then you go from right to left, put a candle in on the rightmost holder, and then the second candle immediately to the left of the first candle. When you light the shamash, you then use the shamash to light the candle on the left and then the candle on the right. On the third night of Hanukkah, you put in 3 candles plus the shamash, and you put the candles in from right to left, and you light them from left to right. And we do that each night of Hanukkah, adding a candle, lighting the newest candle first, and then moving off from left to right. And then by the end of Hanukkah, we have 8 candles plus the shamash lit. The idea being we bring more light into the world, more light each night of Hanukkah. What do you say? Well, the traditional blessings work for a lot of people, but within Humanistic Judaism they don't work, because the traditional blessings focus on the idea that we are commanded by God to light the menorah, that it is God's work and not the work of people that made the Hanukkah holiday possible. And on the first night of Hanukkah, there's a blessing that thanks God for keeping us alive until we reach this day. For a lot of Jews, and especially for humanistic Jews, those blessings don't work, because we don't necessarily think we were commanded to light the menorah. We don't necessarily think that there was anything more than human effort and coincidence and luck and whatever else that allowed the Maccabees to be successful. And a lot of humanistic Jews just aren't really sure that there is anything keeping them alive other than themselves and the people around them. So what do humanistic Jews say instead? One option is keeping in mind that the name of Hanukkah, the word Hanukkah, means dedication or rededication. Each night we can focus on a different theme for each new candle, dedicating ourselves to a particular value, dedicating ourselves to education one night, freedom another night, freedom of thought another night, science one night if you're interested in science as a value. So if you want some samples of that, if you go to the Machar website, machar.org, and you navigate to holidays and then click on the Hanukkah link, you'll go to the Hanukkah page, and the Hanukkah page has a PDF download of dedications, one for each night, that you can use as you light the Hanukkah candles to focus on a modern, secular, modern humanistic Jewish value. Whatever you decide to do for Hanukkah, have a happy Hanukkah, and please come back and watch more of our videos in the future.